I've told this story before, but I'm going to say it again for the purpose of this video. When I was sitting in my infotech class, back in grade 9, second semester, it was around April of 2015, and I was looking at some of the Canucks prospects alongside of a few of my hockey-loving friends. And I was telling them about this guy named Ben Hutton, who was just finishing up his junior year over with the University of Maine Black Bears. And I remember reading so many things about Ben Hutton back when he was a college player that I had a good idea in my head that he was a guy who I believed could fully make an NHL roster one day. Despite being taken in the 5th round of the 2012 NHL entry draft, nobody really had eyes for Ben Hutton. So, going back to grade 9, I would sit down and I'd tell my friends, you see this guy right here that I loaded up on EliteProspects.com? Ben Hutton is a player who will probably spend the year with the Utica Comets, maybe 2 years, and then, by the time 17-18 rolls around, he'll be a full-time NHLer, guaranteed. And a lot of my friends were like, really? You have that much faith in this 5th round pick? And I was like, yeah, I do. Throughout the 9th grade, I would still talk with a few of my other friends. We'd go skating, go to the rink, go to the mall, talk about things, because that's what friends do, and every single time we talked about prospects, there were always the names that we discussed. We talked about Virtanen and Bo Horvat and Shinkaruk, McCann, but I always mentioned Ben Hutton, because I knew, deep down, that he was a player that definitely had the talent to succeed. So going a little bit later, into 2015, the preseason rolls around for the Vancouver Canucks, and this guy, number 27, Ben Hutton, is a defenseman, and he's a player who's making strides. In fact, he was one of the most impressive players that preseason. The 15-16 preseason is what gave Ben Hutton his recognition. And I remember specifically one shift against the Edmonton Oilers where he wheeled the puck right through the neutral zone, Bobby Orr style, and brought it in towards the net, getting a great scoring chance all on a fantastic, inexorable individual effort. And this is the moment that everybody around Canucks Nation was saying, oh my god, he's legit. This guy, 22 years of age, taken in the 5th round, what, 3 drafts ago? He's legit. And he made the team in his first year of coming over to professional hockey. And this is really when a few of us were like, oh my goodness, it's happening, guys. Don't get me wrong, at the end of his junior season, he did play a few games with the Utica Comets, notching himself a goal in that, but come the preseason of 15-16, that is when he really made a huge name for himself. And going through that 15-16 NHL season with the Canucks, 1 goal, 25 total points in 75 games played, and a -21. Hutton led all Canucks defensemen in points. And he won himself the Babe Pratt Trophy, which was the Canucks trophy handed out to the best defenseman on the team as voted by the fans. Hutton was immediately a fan favorite, and a lot of people had their thinking caps on because they were saying, oh, we got a really hot rookie in Bo Horvat last season, and now we got a really hot rookie in Ben Hutton this season. This is great. I remember at the beginning of the year, on Craig Button's top 10 players under 22 list or whatever, something like that, the number 1 spot obviously was Connor McDavid at the time, number 2, I believe it was Dylan Larkin, number 3 was Jack Eichel, and going down the list, number 9 on that list was Vancouver Canucks 22-year-old defenseman Ben Hutton. And, to top it all off, Hutton was being named in this class of American college players stepping into the NHL who were hot. He was being named in this class alongside of Shane Gostisbehere and Colton Parayko. Obviously, now that we're in 2018, heading into the 18-19 season, and Ben Hutton has just had arguably one of the most unimpressive drops in the past few years for Canucks defensemen, it's obvious to see that he's not really in that class anymore. So what exactly do we have to look forward to? What is the expectation for Ben Hutton going into 18-19? Because Ben Hutton's first season, I already said it, 25 points, 75 games, really good for him, especially coming in as a first year. In his second season, Ben Hutton got himself 19 points in 71 games. He wasn't necessarily as good as his first season, but he was easing into things a little bit. There was that whole idea of the sophomore slump coming to strike against Hutton, but for the most part, Canucks fans were acknowledging that, yeah, he was still fairly decent. But this most previous season was not one of those. This was a season wherein Ben Hutton was labeled as just plain bad. Albeit, there were many defensemen on the Canucks that were just labeled as plain bad throughout the season, Goodbranson getting the majority of that shtick, and overall, the Vancouver Canucks last season just weren't good enough. I think the only quote-unquote good defenseman the Vancouver Canucks had, other than, let's say, Alex Biega, I believe it was Alex Edler. And Ben Hutton was a guy who, in this most previous season, where he grabbed himself 6 assists, 6 total points, in 61 games played, he was a player who, if I had to label it, he tried a little bit too hard. This is just what I see, this is what I believe to be true when watching these Canucks games over this past season. Hutton was the guy who made probably the most dangerous mistakes. And I say that in the idea of talking about defensive zone pressure. There were many moments where Hutton's breakout out of his own zone were weak. There were a lot of moments where he carried the puck up a little bit too much, to the point where he would get trapped. There were many moments where he tried to do a bit too much with the puck, and ended up turning it over in the Canucks zone. Hutton overall, in my opinion, was a player who was doing too much with too little time. And for the most part, his skill set didn't really deteriorate. I mean, there were some moments where Hutton did show moments of greatness, particularly in the last few games of the season. He was honestly kind of good in those games. But having Hutton paired alongside of guys like Goodbranson throughout the year really didn't help him, and that Hutton-Goodbranson pairing was arguably the worst pairing the Canucks have seen in years when they were on their anti-game. So, the expectation for me going over into 2018-19 in regards to Ben Hutton is to just simplify the game. Play the game that he played 2 years ago when he debuted. Because that game was a great game. It was simple, it was effective, and it grabbed himself 20+ points. It was the game that got everybody excited. Although I will acknowledge that Ben Hutton was a player who got his chance to play in the NHL because of that Bobby Orr-like shift that he had back against, I believe it was the Oilers in the preseason. And it's just quite obvious to me that he's not really capable of doing that at that level anymore. But for the most part, a lot of his defensive flaws in the most recent season were all just a result of making silly decisions that didn't end up the right way. So, honestly, for me, it's just to simplify the game. Ben Hutton, going into next season, I'm not expecting another 25-point season. I'm not expecting him to get more than 6 goals, because he's got 6 goals in his whole career in the NHL. I'm expecting him to simplify things and to play better with the ones around him. Because Hutton, he's still 25. He's still got a lot of room to grow, although definitely that room to grow isn't as much as it was when he was 22. But Ben Hutton going forward has to be the guy who can adapt to all situations. No matter his D partner, no matter what zone it is, he needs to be able to keep his cool, simplify the game, and make the right decisions. Because that's not something that he did the majority of last season. And we know that he's capable of that. His first and second seasons were prime examples of that. This is why he won the Best Defenseman award for the Canucks in 2015-16 as voted by the fans. Everybody loved Ben Hutton. But going forward, Hutton had an off year. And now, looking at things, Hutton says he wants to get stronger. A lot of Vancouver Canucks fans are saying Hutton's probably gone at the draft. And if he does get traded at the draft, then this whole video was pointless. Let's be honest here. But assuming that he stays on the team, and assuming that he's given another NHL-ready role, this is the expectation that I place upon Ben Hutton as a hockey fan watching my favorite team. Of course, I'm not an NHL player. I can't tell these guys what to do, nor do I believe that they should listen to me. This is just me giving my opinions. And I know that a lot of you guys have your own opinions as well. So, whatever you think about Ben Hutton, comment down in the comment section below. We'd like to get a discussion going on over here, because we're going to be taking a look at other Vancouver Canucks players and laying out expectations for them heading into next season. We started with Brock Besser, sort of touched on it a little bit with Olli Juolevi, and now proceeding with guys like Ben Hutton, who I just really want to succeed. Because back when Button labeled Hutton as one of those guys who was in the same league as Parayko and Gostisbehere, I was really excited. And I was hoping for the best for this kid, and we got the best in his first season. But he's 25, and he's still got many years to go to show that his best season in 2015-16 can be beat. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Plus, gaming, and bye.